JamesKSebenius, Kissinger the Negotiator, Lessons from Dealmaking at the Highest Level. Embark on an exploration of the masterful negotiation tactics of former U.S. Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, as showcased in JamesKSebenius's Kissinger the Negotiator, Lessons from Dealmaking at the Highest Level. Throughout the summary, you will unearth the principles and practices that define Kissinger's versatile approach, allowing him to secure high-stakes agreements in various domains, from diplomacy to business and finance. Discover how Kissinger expertly weaves strategic thinking, decisive realism, and intricate psychological understanding to obtain desired outcomes. This book summary will unveil the 5 core characteristics behind Kissinger's strategic approach and how his mindset and tactics can help you transform your negotiation skills.
Henry Kissinger's negotiation approach. Former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger is acclaimed as a great diplomatic negotiator, with 85% of Americans rating him as excellent negotiator. He was voted as the most effective U.S. Secretary of State in the past 50 years. The renowned diplomat has been sought after for advice by U.S. presidents, CEOs, and world leaders. The book evaluates his approach, derived from the diplomacy of earlier decades, and its relevance in today's negotiation climate. Kissinger's achievement as a negotiator rests on his successful negotiation of high-stakes agreements with the Soviet Union, China, Vietnam, South Africa, and Middle Eastern nations. His consistent approach embodies principles and practices useful for diplomats, business negotiators, public policy, and law. Mastering successful negotiations. Successful negotiations require parties to reach a target agreement on issues they view differently, including emotional and nonverbal communication. Kissinger's approach to negotiations involves reshaping the setup itself to enhance the value of agreement while raising the cost of impasse. This includes forming/dissolving alliances and controlling who participates. The negotiation process is not limited to what happens at the table, but rather encompasses everything that takes place away from it. Kissinger's indirect approach. In his negotiations with Rhodesia's White Prime Minister, Ian Smith, and interested parties, Henry Kissinger used an unconventional, indirect approach to achieve black majority rule. Rather than insisting on immediate direct talks, Kissinger engaged with European nations and leveraged a wide-angle lens to offer a quick route to majority rule while assuring the white minority's rights. Kissinger's negotiation strategy focused on everything that had to happen for a successful agreement to take place and included consultations with Congress and African American leaders. This psychological understanding of the counterparts dramatically enhanced his effectiveness as a negotiator and was also pivotal in ending apartheid in South Africa. Kissinger's approach to negotiations. Kissinger's negotiation style involved zooming in on his counterparts, focusing on both personal relationships and broad strategic concerns. He saw South Africa's support as leverage in Rhodesia and promoted meeting with South African Prime Minister B.J. Vorster. Despite Vorster's support of racial policies, Kissinger convinced him to support majority rule in Rhodesia to avoid violent conflict. Kissinger's negotiations were a blend of empathy and assertiveness, and he believed in using actions away from the table to orchestrate incentives and penalties to induce the desired outcome. His approach with Vorster and then Smith was stringent but compassionate, as he believed that a harsh, demanding, immediate approach would shatter the negotiating process. Kissinger's core characteristics. Henry Kissinger presents 5 core characteristics for effective strategic negotiation. He emphasizes the importance of well-defined, long-term aims that take into consideration the historical and political context. Kissinger recommends devising a precise and step-by-step plan to achieve goals through various means. While staying firm on long-term aims, negotiators should remain flexible and adapt to changing circumstances. Finally, negotiators must be mindful of their reputation to succeed in future negotiations. Kissinger also outlines 3 approaches to negotiation: theological, psychiatric, and realistic. Theological approaches impose conditions top-down, while psychiatric approaches believe that negotiations are always valuable. Kissinger believes in a realistic approach that considers the interests of all parties and aims for positions that serve each one's interests. In contrast, Kissinger denounces both blunt and confrontational and soft and conciliatory tactics. Kissinger's strategic approach to negotiation proved effective in opening diplomatic relations with China and forging an arms agreement with the USSR. He believed that well-crafted agreements could serve the interests of all parties involved in the negotiation. Ultimately, the goal of effective negotiation is to produce a realistic accommodation of conflicting interests, not merely a general panacea for conflict. He argues that actions away from the table, such as coordinating incentives and penalties, can be crucial for success. The Art of Negotiation by Henry Kissinger. Negotiation is an essential process for achieving a positive outcome for all parties involved. Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State, emphasizes that negotiations require the right balance of incentives for an agreement to be realistic. Without a positive or stable deal, continued talks are pointless. The key to success lies in changing the game of negotiation, which could involve pushing some parties out or bringing fresh ones in, shifting the discussion subjects, or making the possibility of no agreement better for you and worse for your counterpart. However, changing the game requires you to understand the accuracy of underlying assumptions and consider the consequences. Through his years of experience, Kissinger observed two significant reasons negotiations fail. Parties involved perceive that the value of not having an agreement is greater than the value of having one, or the game structure is faulty. In conclusion, to steer the negotiation process back on track, it may be necessary to alter the structure of the game, get fresh players involved, or shift the focus of the discussion to achieve a positive outcome that benefits everyone. Kissinger's wide-angle negotiation strategy. Negotiations cannot be separated from the world around them. In the case of the Vietnam War, Kissinger involved other parties like China and the USSR to increase leverage. By using a wide-angle lens and considering all relevant parties, Kissinger was able to pressure North Vietnam and eventually reach the 1973 Paris Peace Accords. However, Watergate and public opinion hindered the agreement's enforcement. Kissinger's approach serves as a reminder to assess the wider context and seek out additional leverage in negotiations. Kissinger's negotiation philosophy. Kissinger believed in the power of understanding the core issues rather than strategies and skills. Despite criticisms, he remained steadfast in his approach, emphasizing that a negotiator must have an agreement in mind. His focus on assumptions as the crucial determinants of a negotiation's outcome proved effective in his negotiation for Israel's potential disengagement from Jordan. This approach resonates today in successful negotiations worldwide. Negotiating success. Negotiating effectively involves taking a broad strategic view focused on accommodating both viewpoints. The negotiator must question assumptions and possess a deep subject matter knowledge. These are among the practical lessons that Kissinger offers from his experience. Think strategically, act opportunistically.
In summary, Kissinger the Negotiator offers timeless lessons and valuable insights into the art of negotiation, which remain relevant for diplomats, business professionals, and anyone looking to understand efficient deal-making. Kissinger's holistic and methodical approach, with a focus on well-defined, long-term aims and a deep understanding of counterpart psychology, allow him to excel in complex negotiations. By learning from Kissinger's strategic and realistic mindset, applying flexible adaptability to shifting circumstances, and reassessing underlying assumptions, readers can adapt these principles to enhance their own negotiating acumen.